Gets and lads, welcome back to the Game Full Podcast. My name is Elijah, and today I'm going to be covering the key takeaways for the Reggae Boys' performance against the USA in the Nations League quarterfinals. Now, before I get into it, though, just want to say thank you to those who did pop into our two streams for both legs. They were awesome. We had a lot of good, fun time, and we hope to do a lot more in the future for Jamaica and a bunch of other games and whatnot. And then number two, leave a like on the video if you guys want to help us out. It helps out more than you know. So if you guys want to support us just a little bit, leave a like, and then also leave a comment down below your opinions on what I'm saying. And your own opinions, even if it doesn't pertain to anything I said. If I missed something or you want to add something or I'm totally wrong, let me know in the comments down below. But we're going to start with the positives takeaways at least, and then we'll move on to the negative takeaways. Number one, first positive I have is the crowd support at home was phenomenal. That cannot be understated. That was really, really good, that show for that first leg at home. For Jamaica, we want to be there. We want to go so bad. It's just so fun to watch. Hopefully, we get to go in the next couple few years. I want to be one of the drummers or dancer, bro. How can we sign a deal with the JFF to get us to do that? Because that looked awesome. I really want to be part of that. So if any of you are watching the video and went to the game, shout out to you guys. You guys did create a great atmosphere for that game, and it's unfortunate the team let you down on the pitch. But number two, the first team positive I have for the pertaining to the team is Isaac Hayden's inclusion. He did, I thought, pretty good for his first two games. His first half, which was the second half of the first leg, I thought he did pretty good. He came on. I wouldn't say he changed the game or anything, but he did add a lot of structure to that midfield and a lot of good input and output. So overall, great first appearance. And then the second leg where he did get a chance to start, I thought he looked pretty good as well. I thought he did do a great job at dictating the tempo in that midfield. It's just, I think the people around him let him down a little bit, but we will talk about that later on in the video. But overall, Isaac Hayden has been a really good addition so far, has proven to be a good get from the JFF, which is definitely positive for them, even though there's not that many recently. And yeah, I do hope that he is a big part of the team moving forward, which I do think he's going to be. I do think he is now one of the main starters on this team. So overall, very good by Isaac Hayden. Number three, the positive takeaway number three is Leon Bailey is back. Now, I know we all have our opinions on how he played. His first leg I thought was pretty good. He grew into the game. His second leg was kind of meh. Again, I do think a lot of it was let down by his teammates around him, but Leon Bailey being back is a good sign, no matter what your opinion is on him. It is a good sign in the way that he has some trust in the JFF, meaning that maybe something has changed internally. That means these players do want to play for the JFF and are more comfortable playing with them and have been promised some things. So that is a good sign there that Leon Bailey, who has been a big public proponent of being against the JFF in some capacity, is now back to play for them. It means something happened on the inside, which means that maybe there is more of a acceptance of what these players need and deserve, maybe, which could be a good sign for a lot of dual nationals who want to come in and play for this team. So him being back, it's a good sign for that, no matter how he played, in my opinion. But if you have a different opinion, let me know in the comments down below, of course. I do think overall, though, in the grand scheme of things, him coming back is a good sign, and you cannot deny how good of a player he is talent-wise. I do think in the future he is going to provide a lot for this team. Having him back before the 2026 World Cup is crucial. I mean, making sure he stays before the 2026 World Cup is insanely crucial. So him being back, I do think is a positive takeaway. Number four positive takeaway I have is the first leg performance. Now, yes, they lost 1-0. It was an away goal for the USA, and they did have to go back to St. Louis, down already with a disadvantage. We all know how that ended up. But I do think the first leg performance was very admirable from the JFF. I do think it's something that this team needed to have, regardless of how the second leg went. And I do wish it impacted the second game in a much better fashion. I do think they played a very, very good game. There is a negative regarding this game that I will talk about in just a little bit, but overall, towards the end of the game, it could be argued that Jamaica deserved to win it in some capacity, if not end that game in a draw. Obviously, Shamar Nicholson did a really, really good job to get that penalty, but then obviously Damari Gray did miss it. Mason Hoge had an opportunity to tie it up, but also just wasn't able to get his foot on the ball. And then the defense, which I'll talk about again later, the defense allowed a goal pretty early on, even though they're playing a 5 at the back. Otherwise, though, I don't think the USA had a lot going for them. I think Jamaica's aggressiveness, which we didn't see in the second game, it was very prominent there in the first game, and it really frustrated the USA. You could tell, regardless of if they were fouled or not, how the ref was calling it. I do think that it messed with the USA a lot, and that is one of the USA's biggest weaknesses, is their passion in a way. Like, obviously it's very good, but at the same time, when they get too passionate about the game and being, the referees against them or whatever, like it really does diminish how they play. So I do think it was good there. Like I said, a lot of players coming in that did do a good job there. So yeah, overall the first league performance I thought was pretty good, pretty fun to watch. Absolutely, as a Jamaica fan, and like I said, they deserved more than a 1-0 loss in the game. I throughout the whole stream I was saying that there's no way Jamaica leaves us without getting a goal. They did, unfortunately, but they 100% deserve one, if not two, if not three. So, yeah, overall good performance, and they could still, if that was a one-off game, they could still be pretty happy with that. Obviously, though, it was diminished by a second league loss, meaning it didn't really matter at all. But it was not bad, and against a top regional opponent, nonetheless, because we have seen Jamaica struggle a little bit against top opponents and knowing how to play against them. Over time, the team knew how to play against the USA in that game. Obviously, it wasn't from the get-go, but over time they figured it out, which is a good sign, because I think Jamaica typically does struggle in those kind of games. So it's a good sign that they are picking something up, and they should be pretty proud of that in some capacity. And then the last positive takeaway I have from this game, and obviously this is just my opinion, so if you guys have more, let me know in the comments down below. But the chance creation overall I thought was very solid. I was pretty happy with how the team played in some parts to get these chances created. I obviously started watching Jamaica under the reign of Heimer Haugemson. Me and the boys went to go watch them in Vegas, and it's so hard to watch that team play just long balls. It's such a waste of talent for them just to play long balls, which was the plan up until this point, and now it still kind of is the plan. I think I see still McClaren is still kind of trying to phase out of that mentality, but seeing it before was rough. So I do think having a little bit more build up here, a little bit more interplay on the wings and in the middle, it did look really good for Jamaica. It's just a matter of keeping that consistent, keeping that up throughout most of the games. When they did do that, I thought it looked pretty good. I cannot complain about that at all. I thought it was very good, especially against an opponent like the USA. Chance creation is very, very, very huge, and something they do need to build on, because you can't rely on just booting the ball up and hoping somebody gets there, like Michael Antonio, especially when he doesn't have his passport, so he can't show up, which I will talk about later. It crumbles that way. It crumbles very, very quickly that way. So to not be doing that the whole time, I think is really a good show that there is some improvement to the style of play being had there. Now, I am interested in seeing, though, why it hasn't been a more immediate and more quick by Steve McClaren. I don't think Steve McClaren will come in and be like, okay, yeah, Heimer was doing a good job, let's keep doing long balls. I do think there's other forces at play in the JFF or whatever that kind of require him. Maybe there's added pressure in some capacity that means he's going to play his way. I don't know. That is just my opinion. But yes, that is the 5 positive takeaways I have for Jamaica's performance here. Again, if you have a different one, let me know in the comments down below. But let's move on to the negatives, because there are plenty of them. Okay, so that first negative takeaway I want to talk about, which I kind of did mention 2 takes ago, is the beginning 15 to 20 minutes. It is so frustrating when I think the whole fan base and supporter groups and whatever are more into the game in the beginning and leading up to it than the team is. It is a common thing among oh my god, Jesus. It is a common thing for Jamaica against better opponents. This thing is that for the first 15 to 20 minutes, they're so stagnant. They are obviously not warmed up and ready for this game. They do not go into this game with a fire that the USA might have, that Mexico might have, that Canada might have, to start the game on a good note. Jamaica are so stagnant. They just stand around, and that's why they conceded the first goal to the USA in that first leg. Sorry, they don't come out of the gate firing at all. They come out of the gate kind of just mulling around, and they have to grow into the game. This was also a big factor in the Copa America game, where they would always start the second half a little bit better than the first half, because the first half they were not just ready. It's painful to watch. It's painful to watch because the team that you play against, especially when it's a better opponent in Concacaf, are able to use that 15-20 minutes to get into the flow of the game, get into a rhythm, and then it's up to the other team, like Jamaica, to stop that. Now, if you come out of the gate ready, you have a better chance at dominating this game, at getting a foothold into this game onto the opponent, and that lets you play how you want to play. If you don't start like that, you have to play to the other team's strengths and weaknesses. And that is what Jamaica did here. And that is the reason why they can never get it going from the start, but the other team is always able to. And Jamaica is always playing catch up. Now, this is also very clear in the midfield. It was so easy to see this happening in the midfield. If you watch the stream, a lot of the things Dress and I were saying in the beginning were how it's so easy for the USA to pass around them in the midfield. The USA was able to do whatever they wanted with the ball. We did see in the second leg in the beginning, I do think they started pressing earlier on, which allowed them to have a little bit more fire and motivation. But in that first leg, USA was doing whatever the hell they wanted to in the midfield. They passed around with no worries at all. Tim Ream was walking with the ball. Weston was just slowly making his way to the box, and he almost got to the box with zero pressure. So that is one of the biggest things. And I'm just going to move on to my second take, which is the midfield struggles. I mentioned it every single game. Every single video, I'm sorry. Every single video I talk about Jamaica, I talk about how this midfield is the weakest part of the team. I don't know if I would say they were the weakest part of the team in this tie, which I will talk about in a little bit, but the midfield struggles is still prominent, and this relates back to the first take I just said, where the beginning of the games are so rough, and that midfield is the ones that pay for it. The midfield, in my opinion, if anything in the beginning, the midfield is the one section of the team that needs to start hot, right? And the midfield for Jamaica was absolutely not doing that this game. It is getting better though. I talked about Isaac Hayden. It is getting better in some capacity. They brought in Rafa Morrison, who didn't get a chance to play. They brought in Tyreek McGee, who didn't really do a whole lot. The first game he was decent. It was the October international window where he did really good. But the midfield they're trying to change a little bit, which is a good sign. Obviously, Bobby Reed not being there is a huge miss. I think him being there would have been a big deal for the midfield. Isaac Hayden was the only bright spot there, though. The midfield is still such a big struggle, and it starts to make me wonder if Heimer Hallgrimsson was playing long balls on purpose because he didn't have faith in the midfield to build it up. And if he didn't, I'm not going to necessarily fully disagree with him. There were plenty of opportunities that I mentioned earlier where their build up was a lot better, and it is getting better. But the midfield is still a big con for this team that does need to improve if they want any bit of success in the World Cup qualifiers and the World Cup itself if they do qualify. A lot of that second leg, they were definitely just ball chasing, which really is not a good look. It gets you tired, number one, doesn't get you control of the game, number two, and allows the other team to do whatever they want, which is what happened in both legs. They were ball chasing. USA's midfield, USA's team individually is phenomenal. They have, in relation to CONCACAF, they have a very good individual quality team. So you can't allow them to do what they want, which I think Jamaica learned in the first game, and that's where they were kind of being very brutal and aggressive. Otherwise, though, ball chasing in the second leg, not a good sign. Not a good sign, especially when you're losing 1-0 and you need to come back. And that is a big reason why the USA scored 4. But anyways, yeah, let's move on to the third one. Let's talk about Steve McClaren a little bit. Now, Steve McClaren, I do like his appointment. I don't think he's been doing bad as Jamaican manager, and I'm still very hopeful for the next couple of years. But his second leg in particular, I was not very impressed with. His first leg was okay. I do think he started the game pretty rough. I don't like how he set up the team at all, but I do think he made some good substitutions at halftime, made some good changes that allowed Jamaica to get some foothold in the game and get back into it in front of the home fans. But the second leg, I was not very impressed at all. I do think his lineup that he switched up from the first leg into the second leg was pretty piss poor. It wasn't a good decision to bring Tavon Gray in. I did like Deshaun Berard coming in. I thought he was going to be a lot better, but he unfortunately was not. The Tyreek McGee start was interesting. I do like it, but I think at that point you should start with Rafa Morrison, and he's still kind of stuck with the 3/5 of the pack, depending on defense and attack. It just wasn't working for Steve McClaren. Obviously, I think this team needs to move away from the 5 at the back. I don't know why you fully stick with it, right? It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, it's not a full 5 at the back. Obviously, like Damian Lowe or Joe Lottie, whoever's playing that DM spot, it's kind of both midfield and defense. It's more of a halfback anchor role where he will come back on defense and form a back 3, but then he will move forward on the attack. I just don't think it works that well. I think you need a true DM who just stays as a DM. Otherwise, you're going to get him caught out in a lot of different positions and a lot of different spaces, which I do think happens a lot, especially with Damian Lowe, is once he's caught out of position, it's so easy for the USA to get the ball back into the midfield and have that midline open, and then it's just a waste of a player. Then Damian Lowe is not involved anymore, and then it's just one less defender / midfielder, and the USA just has more opportunity to do something. So I don't think the 5 at the back works. I do think that he should start to ingrain a 4 at the back, and then that would free up a true midfielder, maybe make the midfield a little bit better, or even a second striker. I don't know. But I don't think the 5 at the back should be the go-to standard for this team anymore because it's not working. To have a 5 at the back, right, which is your bread and butter, I guess, in a way, even though it's not that successful, it is just what you know how to do. You start that and you concede 5 minutes into the game. That is embarrassing. That is truly embarrassing to have a 5 at the back but concede a ball almost down the middle, a through ball down the middle with 3 center backs and 2 fullbacks, and it was a clear shot, almost no pressure on his. There was no pressure on Ricardo Pepe's shot. So yeah, Steve McClaren's the reason to stick with the five at the back is unknown for me, and I struggle to believe that he would come here and see that was not working with Jaime and stick with it, which makes me wonder if there are other forces at play, other pressures, assistant coaches and whatnot, as to why he's still playing this. It confuses me. I don't like it. I also don't like the fact that he started Mason Holgate that first game. I was very hopeful that Mason Holgate was going to be a big player for this team, and he still can be, don't get me wrong, especially in the absence of Ethan Pinnock, but not a good first game at all. At all. He ended the game with a red card, and then he wasn't able to play a second leg, and then Deshaun Bernard came on instead, and I was really hopeful, but Deshaun Bernard also had a really bad game. Mason Holgate starting that game should not have happened. I think you should have started that game either with Richard King, maybe. I do like him coming on that second leg. I really enjoyed how he played. I do think he's going to be a big deal for Jamaica moving forward, especially without Ethan Pinnock. But you started Mason Holgate instead, and he just didn't look good at all. He doesn't look comfortable on the ball. He looks inexperienced, even though he's not, which is really interesting. He's just experienced with Concacaf. It just didn't work. He was trying to do long balls. He was trying to ping the ball. His pass completion rate, I'm sure, was not that good. So yeah, Steve McClaren overall, I was not very impressed by his coaching for either leg, in particular the second leg. We got two more takeaways here, guys. Number 4 is going to be the defense, which I just kind of talked about. A lot of these players let the team down. This defense was desperately in need of Ethan Pinnock. It is unfortunate that Ethan Pinnock is not here. He did pick up a knock in that last Brentford game before the international break, which of course would happen to Jamaica, but he was desperately needed here for Jamaica, and that was plain to see. I do think if he's here, that first goal doesn't happen by Ricardo Pepi, but without him, obviously you have to play different players. Bernard, Holgate, and Tavon Gray. I do think they let the team down pretty hard. Mason Holgate, he didn't it's not as though he allowed the USA to have many shots or have many goals in that first leg. He just didn't allow Jamaica to get a whole lot for themselves. And then as a result, red card, like I said, Deshaun Bernard comes on and then he gets an own goal. I think he finishes with like a 4.4 FOTMOB rating in that game. It just wasn't good. It wasn't good. I had high hopes for Deshaun Bernard, but it didn't work out. Both those players let him down. Then Tavon Gray obviously just didn't have a good game. I was also very hopeful on him. I do like Tavon Gray as a MLS player, and I thought he had a decent October international with Jamaica. I'm glad to see he's back with the team. But to start this game, I don't know. I was saying things on the stream saying that it's a good sign maybe, but it just obviously just didn't work out in the end. As a result, Christian Pulisic's left wing was very wide open for Tavon Gray. A lot of things could happen there, and yeah, he just didn't provide a lot. So those 3 players in particular, I do think let the team down a little bit. But you know what? We move, so be it. I am interested to see how much they're still playing moving forward. Maybe Steve McClaren feels different, but I would like to see I do think Lemby should be the number 1. I do think Richard King deserves more opportunities at center back because I thought he did pretty decent against the USA. It's just a lot to be had there. And then the overall marking was pretty bad. Man marking by that defense, especially in that second game, was pretty bad. Weston McKennie's assist to Christian Pulisic, no marking on either of them, no player on either. I think it was Tim Weah's goal or whatever goal that one of the players crossed it across and they had almost a clear shot. I think it was Tim Weah's goal. Nobody was marking him. All of them were drawn to the right side of the box, and he was wide open. So overall, the defense's marking in those 2 games were just nothing to be impressed by any means. It does need to get better. It does need to be work on that on the training ground for those. It was pretty piss poor. And then overall, I mean, Andre Blake also I don't think had the greatest international window of all time. I do still think he's the number 1 goalkeeper in CONCACAF, but he definitely could have had a better window. Not to say he was bad. He made some couple decent saves, and I do think, like I said, his defense did let him down a lot, but not the best international window from him. Overall, so be it. I do think it's more of the team's fault than his fault, except for maybe that Pulisic goal. I don't know. It's up to you. That's up to interpretation. That is subjective, but he didn't have the best one. And then we do have our last take here, which is, in my opinion, is the favorite take I'm about to talk about. The whole passport situation is embarrassing. The passport situation with Jamaica is something that should not be happening when you want to be one of the best nations in the North American region. Obviously, Michael Antonio and Michael Antonio and Kaheem Dixon did not play in the second leg or were not even able to travel to St. Louis because they lost their passports. You know how embarrassing that is for the JFF, who have not really been that, good for their own image recently. Michael Antonio and Kaheem Dixon did not show up because they lost their passports. Now, obviously, that sounds too good to be true. And maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe that is some lame excuse for something that happened. Maybe there's some dissent amongst Dixon and Antonio, or some disagreements, or some reason they want to go back. I don't know. But the passport situation is all we know. And that alone is amazing That is amazing. That should not happen in the Concacaf Nations League quarterfinals, second leg against the United States of America. There should not be missing passports for not one but two players. Two players lost their passports. Now, does that mean were they individually holding them and lost them? Was somebody holding them and lost them? And if it was somebody else, that person deserves to be fired. Because what the hell? It is overall just a stain on the federation. Now, the federation obviously is something that a lot of people love. Obviously, it is obviously the biggest reason as to why Jamaica is not the level they should be at right now. This is just another one of those things that is a stain on the Jamaica Football Federation. Regardless of how it happened or who's at fault, it goes down to the JFF in some capacity, and they're the ones to blame for it, no matter if they were at fault or not. It is a stain on the JFF's legacy and how they act in this time. And really, I know a lot of people are pretty upset with them too. I am. It is upsetting. It is embarrassing. It is absolutely amazing that this happened to a team that has Premier League ballers in their ranks. I don't know what's going on. It is embarrassing. But yeah, that's going to cover all the positive and negative takeaways I have for the Nations League quarterfinals appearance by Jamaica. Let me know your opinions down below in the comments. Of course, I'm going to read through all of them. I'm going to comment on a lot of them, and I'm going to heart a lot of them, whatever. But yeah, make sure to leave a like on this video if you guys want to support us. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already for more Jamaica and Concacaf content, because we're going to have a lot in the coming weeks. And yeah, go on, the Reggae Boys. It is what it is. Let's move on. We'll see you guys in the future videos. Take care.